Hey yo, peepuru, Shaxu here once again to talk about Delve. It's great, but clearly not everyone knows about it, so let's talk about how it works, how it scales, and what loot you can get from the deep dark mines. I will try to keep this video short and simple, so turn on your brain cells and let's dive into it. Like and subscribe. Delve is pretty much infinite, with some cool boss fights, exclusive loot, and it scales in difficulty as well as reward based on depth. You'll find more juicy loot, more cities, and more bosses as you go deeper and deeper into the dark. Before we go deeper though, let's cover a few basics. To delve, you need sulfite, which you get in maps. It scales with map tiers and map quantity. The only exception is endless delve events, where sulfite is infinite, so you just delve. You use that sulfite to fuel the crawler. No, it's not some spooky monster, it's a lovely cart-looking machine that serves as a light source and lays path for you to follow in the unending darkness. You also get a few flares for exploring side areas along the path, some dynamites for destroying fractured walls, and bursting down delve bosses. As you go deeper, you might want to look into upgrading your delve tools, which cost azurite. Azurite is a Delve exclusive resource which can be found in these notes. It is used to buy upgrades, and when you have those sorted out, buying resonators from Nico for personal use or selling for profit to other players. At the start, you want to increase your sulfite tank capacity so you can delve longer before needing to go refuel in maps. Getting your darkness resistance up will help you survive when you find yourself in a no-light scenario, which does happen quite a bit. At least to me, Pepega behind the wheel. Cart light radius is increasing the radius of the light. Normally, you want to max this out for nicer clearing experience because monsters in the dark don't take damage. However, monsters that you don't come close to and the light doesn't touch will not attack. So keeping cart light radius low is a valid choice, especially in deeper depths. And then you just rely more on flares, which you should upgrade, but don't waste azurite because they do get pretty expensive pretty quickly. However, if you are exploring the side areas, trying to target farm some specific fossils for example, it might be worth to get a few more upgrades here. As for dynamite, early on, ignore the upgrades. You don't need them to destroy fractured walls. But once you do find a boss, you should max this out. They do two things: damage based on enemy's maximum life and stun. So once you get to the last phase of a boss, throw out your dynamites and watch them chunk down the boss HP. This can also be used outside of boss fights to stun some annoying monsters, maybe burst down some chunky rare mobs. Alright, basics out of the way, time to go deeper. A general rule of thumb for Delve is the deeper the better, but the deeper you go the harder it gets. So recommended minimum farming depth is around 250, the difficulty is still fairly low and it starts to feel nice in terms of rewards. There are two difficulty increases. Passive is the depth scaling, which goes up bit by bit, mostly affecting monster life and not so much their damage. Well, at least the first few hundred depths, later it just becomes a one-shot fiesta. But the other very impactful difficulty scaling is conditional, and that is random area modifiers that you can see before starting the run. The deeper you go, the stronger and more frequent they become. They are very similar to map mods, they also add quantity, rarity, and pack size, but you have no control over them, so they cannot roll stuff like no regen or elemental reflect. However, they can roll something that we don't have in maps: monsters penetrate elemental resistances. That mod is a real killer, so in hardcore you might want to reroute around it if possible. Also, worth mentioning that you can find some Delve exclusive area modifiers that could be useful in SSF or Endless Delve environment. Mods like additional insect packs or just increased pack size. Those could be great to find on a long route, rushing to the end while blasting monsters on your way, logging out before completing it, and repeating that over and over for some great XP gains. Or mods like side areas contain more fossils or currency. This could be used to better target farm fossils from a specific biome. More on that in a little bit, but the key thing to know here is to not destroy the fractured walls. If you destroy a wall on that route, it will stop resetting loot. But if you keep the walls intact, you can explore and loot the side areas, reset the instance, and it will refill all the looted chests and fossils on that route. Which leads us to Delve Biomes. As you join your cart on an epic adventure through the mines, you will discover many different zones, each with their own monsters, possible encounters, and loot. Occasionally, you will find Delve cities, which can contain, in my opinion, some of the coolest boss fights in the entire game. But for now, let's focus on biome-specific loot. Fossils. Some of them can appear in multiple biomes, some are exclusive to a specific biome, and some can only be found behind fractured walls in a specific biome. feel free to stop the video and take a closer look where to find a specific fossil that you need. But wait, there are more. On top of these generic fossils, there are currently 6 more that are not only biome exclusive, but also only drop from a specific encounter. However, only 4 of them are actually good and are considered to be the big fossils. Let's start with a fractured fossil. It is found in Sulfur Vents biome and only from a fossil node called Humid Fissure. Funny thing is, fractured fossils don't have anything to do with fractures. Instead, it splits an item into 2, or in other words, duplicates the item base, keeping all the sockets and quality, but rerolls modifiers on both. So a basic use case would be to duplicate a 6ling rare item or a hard-to-get item base before crafting it. Beware that it cannot be used on items that are enchanted, fractured, synthesized, or influenced. And, well, unique. Faceted fossil. It is found in Magma Fissure biome, and only from a fossil node called Molten Cavity. This fossil makes rolling item modifiers that have a gem tag a lot easier, and it also adds 3 possible suffixes to all items, +1 to level of socketed dexterity, intelligence, and strength gems. There are many use cases for such a fossil, but a popular one is to roll certain influenced items with multiple socketed skills are supported by X support modifiers. And paired with the next fossil on the list, you can try to create such above average power level items. That next fossil is Glyphic Fossil. It is found in Frozen Hollow biome and only from a fossil node called Time Lost Cavern. This fossil guarantees 1 random modifier from a corrupted essence. It picks 1 out of 4 mods because if you use it on gloves, you can only get glove modifiers from those essences. So 4 essences, 4 possibilities. This can be used for some more advanced crafting with fossil blocking certain mods and still getting that juicy essence modifier that you want. And the last, but also the least of the big fossils, Hollow Fossil. It is found in Abyssal Depths biome, and only from a fossil node called Crystal Spire. This fossil will always add a suffix mod has an abyssal socket, and that means 1 gem socket on that item will be replaced with an abyssal socket, allowing you to squeeze in some more damage and or life. This should only really be used for some cracked minimax endgame gear crafting when you don't need a specific hard-to-get influence mod, like Tailwind on boots for example. Before we dive into my favorite Delve juice, which is Delve cities and their bosses, let's quickly cover the remaining encounter types. These will have at least 1 chest with appropriate loot, rings, jewels, etc. from jewelry encounters, maps and map currencies from map encounters, and so on. Encounters with this metal-looking icon will contain multiple warband members as bosses of that node, so killing them can drop you a warband unique item. A quick example is the Red Blade Banner Shield for all of those Warcry-oriented build enjoyers. You can get that from Red Blade warband nodes. In these encounters, you can get some rare items with one of the beast aspects. Some nodes will have a League mechanic encounter such as Breach, Legion, or Beyond, so you can get their loot as if you would do them in a map. This is where it gets interesting. Nodes that say contains called items will drop a number of called related loot, essences, fossils, rare items, and sometimes uniques. Same for all other elements and types of these encounters. So fire items will drop fire related loot, minion items will drop minion related loot, you get the point. But those rare items are not normal. They have Delve exclusive modifiers and can even drop with those modifiers already fractured. That is pretty rare, but it can happen. There are too many mods to cover in this video, so I will only mention a few that are worth mentioning. In my eyes, the most useful ones are on rings, physical damage converted to elemental, curse on hit, global life leech for all damage types, minion damage, and life preservation efficiency. Good mods on helmets, physical damage taken as elemental, chaos resistance is 0. If you don't have any other sources, this is like plus 60% chaos resistance. Body armors have +1 curse, +1 specter or their friends, and shields have corrupting blood immunity. With all that out of the way, we can move on to the juicy part of Delve, Delve cities. There are 3 types of cities: Abyssal City, Val Outpost, and the rarest but juiciest of them all, Primeval Ruins. They don't have any biome-specific fossils, however they have more monsters, more generic loot, and occasional boss encounters. The loot you get from cities is completely random. You get 8 to 14 chests that can contain pretty much anything. Cluster jewels, temple mod items, div cards, currency, maps. In fact, maps, currency, and divination cards is one of the most common types of chests, so it feels pretty nice. One thing that makes Primeval Ruins stand out is Azurite chests. Those bad boys can give anywhere between 10 and 20,000 Azurite, and I believe it scales with depth, so it could give you even more if you go deep enough. However, the real content you are fishing for is bosses. They have names and lore, but I like to call them the yellow boss, the green boss, and Aul, aka the blue boss. Makes life a lot easier. One cool mechanic that is spread between all bosses is the 3-piece charge enhancing rings. Each boss can drop 3 different ring variations, but you need to kill all bosses to collect a full set of the same color rings. Red rings represent endurance charges, green rings represent frenzy charges, and blue rings represent power charges. To put it simply, you gather 3 different rings that are technically just pieces for a bigger ring and vendor those 3 rings together to get the big boy ring. If you vendor 3 different blue rings, what you get back is a ring with 3 power charge enhancing modifiers. If you vendor 2 blue and 1 green, you get a ring with 2 power charge and 1 frenzy charge enhancing mods. It's basically a big gamba. You can get some crazy expensive Omega Amazing ring or complete El Garbago. Those rings aside, let's start with the green boss, Kurgle. In trade leagues, he is kind of a waste of time. But in early SSF or Endless Delve events, good thing to know is that you can target farm a pretty nice unique 6-link from this guy. He drops a divination card or a Shroud of the Lightless, which then you only need to 5-link and you have a 6-link with decent stats. The card is very common and this boss is very common, so it works. Next one is the yellow boss, Ahuatotli. He is a source of one of the Trial Master fragments and Doriani's Machinarium map. Good both in early and late game, nice and consistent profit from this guy. He also has a decent scepter, not a lot of damage, but it's usable early and it's fairly interesting for some additional defense. Last but not least this time, Aul. This guy is cool. Hands down my favorite boss fight, and he does drop some POG stuff. Mainly the amulet, which is the most common drop, roughly 45% chance to drop, Aul's Uprising. There are quite a few variations for every aura skill gem in the game. It allows you to run 1 aura for free, which in some build setups could be absolutely massive. He also drops this unique helmet that has a downside of only having 1 gem socket, but gives a nice boost in damage, and with a good life roll, this could be a decent option. However, this is most likely used on support characters or animate guardians to boost your or other minion damage. There are 2 divination cards that drop from the blue boss. Both are pretty good, Luminous Trove and Desecrated Virtue. However, the latter is omega rare. To have a better understanding about Delve, I started a science project, live on twitch.tv/Shaxu, and as we all know, knowledge is power, so check out this video.